to the interwebs, and welcome back. We are still here, live from the AWS Santa Clara Summit in the middle of the Expo Hall. My name is Nikki. I'm a technical evangelist at AWS, and I'm joined by my lovely co-host Rob and some awesome members of the S3 Glacier team. Why don't you guys go ahead and introduce yourselves?
Sure. My name is Abhinav Goyal. I'm one of the software development managers at Glacier, and I'm responsible for developing the services that ingest and retrieve the data that comes into Glacier and Deep Archive.
My name is Rob Zarnecki, and I'm one of the product managers for S3 Glacier.
And you know me, I'm Rob.
So many
evangelist.
Robs today.
I know. It's a good name.
It's not confusing
strong.
at all.
Rob and Rob. This should be really easy to remember.
I get the pleasure of working with Nikki.
I'm glad that's a pleasure. Not everybody would agree. So, Andy pre-announced S3 Glacier Deep Archive at reInvent, and there was a lot of hype and buzz around it. So tell us, what are you announcing today, and why should developers and builders be so excited about it?
Absolutely. The excitement's absolutely been building since Andy pre-announced S3 Glacier Deep Archive at reInvent. And we're really excited to announce today that Deep Archive is available to our customers in all worldwide commercial and GovCloud regions. Customers and builders have loved Glacier for years, and one of the things that we love about our customers is that we get to spend so much time with them hearing their feedback. And it's really true that customer feedback drives 90% of the features and services that we deliver at AWS. So customers told us that in many cases, Glacier was actually too much for them. It was more than they needed.
What is Glacier, for those that don't know?
Absolutely. So Glacier is an S3 storage class. Think of it as archival storage. It's asynchronous. So it's not like your typical S3 classes where you can put your data in and just get it back within milliseconds. You have to go and restore those objects before you can access them. And Glacier gives you three options. You can restore them as quickly as within 1 to 5 minutes, or as long as 5 to 12 hours. And it's great for certain workflows, but there were customers that are putting data into Glacier that they actually have to keep, whether they want to have access to it or they have an obligation or a requirement, and they never plan to or intend to touch it.
Access it. They never plan to access the data.
That's absolutely right. So we took a really hard look at Glacier and thought, is there something we can do better for those customers? And who doesn't love lower prices? So particularly the customers who manage their own storage infrastructure, and they focus a lot on cutting costs. Their feedback was clear that, well, for some workloads, we can actually find a way to do it cheaper than Glacier ourselves. And we believe with Deep Archive that we come in at a lower price point, and what's really amazing is that we offer the same security, the same 11 nines of durability spread across at least 3 availability zones, and availability that you find from Glacier or any of the other S3 storage classes.
So what are like some common use cases where somebody would have to put something into storage and like never retrieve it?
So I think they cut across so many industries. Things like financial, medical, and legal records, research results, geospatial data, anything that a customer doesn't really need to touch every day, but they're not ready to get rid of. And we really think that there's a value proposition out there that with Deep Archive, you never have to make that judgment of, is what I'm paying for this data more than the likelihood of its value to me in the future, because that price is so low.
And what is that price?
So the storage price for Deep Archive starts at less than 1/10 of a cent per gigabyte month.
Dang,
that works
so that's
out
like
to
$1
that's
per
right.
terabyte.
Just about $1 per terabyte per month.
It's insane. So how does that compare to off-site vaulting taping services or on-prem taping costs?
Absolutely. We believe that it's lower than the price the customers would pay to either manage their own tape infrastructure, whether it's exclusively on their premises, or whether it's a hybrid combination of some on-prem and some off-site storage.
And if I had that tape, what obstacles am I up against?
You know, the feedback that we hear from customers is it's really, really difficult to maintain tape infrastructure. It takes a lot of time. You have to be worried about the tapes degrading if they're not stored within the right environmental conditions. You need to have multiple copies to provide redundancy against any failures. You need to validate frequently, and then you need to worry about periodic refreshes as the hardware changes over time. So it really takes a lot of time to just make sure that data is there and accessible. And it's offline. It's dark. It's impossible to do machine learning or any type of analysis. And the effort is just so high that it's really a classic example of undifferentiated heavy lifting.
Yeah.
And we believe that with Deep Archive, customers can spend their time delivering value to their business.
Not managing tape.
Exactly, and put their data right into Deep Archive.
And I also add that it seems like it's becoming increasingly uncommon as a commodity service, right? You can go to a colo and you can rack and stack your own hardware, you can get your own networking equipment, you can put in your own blades, but it's less common for people to go out and find commoditized solutions for tape. So increasingly they're kind of facing this divide of, do I build this out on-prem or do I use a hosted solution like
I think
like
that's
Glacier?
right. I think it's a build it versus buy it, and again, it's hard. You need to have physical space on-prem. At a certain point, you don't have space for all those tapes, so you maybe have to pack the extra copies into a box and then call a delivery van and send it off-site. And then if you need it, you need to put in a request. That could take days for your files to come back. They could pull the wrong box.
Yeah.
The index could be out of sync. So you have to anticipate 2 or 3 volleys before you actually get the files that you were looking for.
Yeah.
And with Deep Archive, you make a request, and we'll deliver exactly the object that you requested within either 12 or 48 hours.
Yeah, and tape is really just one thing, right? Today, during the keynote, one of the key things that was mentioned was how in the medical industry, like these MRIs and CT scans are so expensive to store in digital form that they actually have to print it on film. Right now with Deep Archive, they can actually digitalize that, and they don't have to worry about the cost, and they can just store them for like 30, 40, and multiple decades going forward.
But in these compliance-related cases where we have to keep medical records or legal records for a certain amount of time, that data is only good if it's actually durable. Maybe you can talk a little bit about the durability guarantees that we have.
Absolutely. So when we take the data into any S3 storage class, with the exception of one zone in frequent access, we spread it across at least 3 availability zones. And what's fantastic about that is that the separation between zones is sufficiently far that they're not subject to the same type of faults. So if there's something like a power outage, it's a classic example. If there's a storm and a line is down, only one AZ will not take down all of your data. And the way we design for our 11 nines of durability, we can lose an entire availability zone and then still have a few additional hiccups and
That's
be able
incredible.
to recover your object when you request it.
11 nines. I bet I could build a service that's better than that. I could build 12 eights.
I think it'd be tough.
So just to reiterate, if you missed it, I would use Glacier Deep Archive for data that I plan to never retrieve again, and then I would use Glacier for common use cases for Glacier.
I think generally that's right. I wouldn't go quite so far to the extreme. A couple of examples to illustrate the difference. We have customers in the media and entertainment industry that find Glacier really useful because they have a large library of content that they might need quickly, whether they pull it every day to compile a highlight reel.
It's not commonly or frequently retrieved. It's less frequently retrieved.
It's less frequently retrieved, but when they need it quickly. They
Right.
need to have the ability of that expedited restore within 1 to 5 minutes, or the standard restore within 3 to 5 hours. It's the same business day. The difference between Deep Archive, while we think many customers might not request the data, they absolutely can. It's just that they need to be willing to wait at least 12 hours
Got
and
it.
potentially up to 48 if they make a bulk request and save a little bit of cost on the request side.
Got
There
it.
is no ability to accelerate the way you can with
So
Glacier.
it's a longer retrieval time for data you just need to store, but don't necessarily need to retrieve frequently or even like infrequently.
That's the best way to look at it. I think about Deep Archive, if you ask for the elevator pitch, in 2 ways. One, it replaces the need to manage tape, and 2, it trades off storage price for access time to retrieve your first byte against Glacier.
Makes sense. Abhinav, I hear you have a demo for me.
Sure.
I want to see it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to present 2 different things. I'm first going to present how to get data into Deep Archive.
Okay.
One of the key design philosophies that we were actually following throughout the entire development process was we wanted to be completely undifferentiated from an end user perspective as to
Yeah.
how they get data into Glacier today.
Okay.
Right. So our existing Glacier customers who have already software hooked up,
They know
can
what it's like to get data into
absolutely.
Glacier.
They know how it works. With a single change, they can now make it go directly to Deep Archive.
That's awesome.
So I'm going to show 3 different ways of how to get data into Deep Archive.
Can you also share some best practices with us?
Absolutely. So the best practices for getting the data into Glacier and Deep Archive really depends on what kind of data you're moving and how much data you're moving.
Okay.
I'm here showing a demo from a console, but you can use like the SDKs and the CLIs
Yep.
across all the different languages that you prefer. So this is from the console. You can go ahead and like really just upload any file,
Any file.
right?
Straight up.
I'm just going to take a file, and I'm going to basically say open, and as I'm going through this, it will actually show you here all the options of which storage class, and you can actually see both Glacier and Deep Archive are directly there. And once I select that, I'm just going to go click upload, and as soon as it's uploaded with my internet connection, it will actually be visible. Right? So this is one of the easiest ways of getting data which you know is going directly to Deep Archive. Right? This is data that is new data that you're generating that doesn't exist in AWS just yet. You're uploading it for the first time.
All right, so now let's say, I need to get this data back because I'm being sued or something, and I didn't expect to need to get it back. How do I retrieve it, and what is the time to first byte delivery?
Sure. I think Rob talked about the different storage tiers, but I'm actually going to go click on this object. As soon as you click on it, you will actually see a restore option. So restores.
Oh, right there. Okay.
Yeah, restores from Glacier and Deep Archive are a two-step process. You first have to request your object to be restored.
Okay.
And once that's restored is when you can do a get on it. So I'm going to go ahead and do a restore. You get an option of what speed you want, so bulk and versus standard, as well as how long you want this data to be retained so that it's available to you in milliseconds after it has been restored.
All right, so standard is faster.
So standard is up to 12 hours, whereas bulk is you have to be willing to wait up to 48 hours. I'll most probably keep it for 7 days, so it will actually show you that your
So
data.
once you've restored it, you're now saying I'm going to hold this for 7 days because I need this data, but then you can put it back in a Deep Archive.
It will automatically go away.
Great.
So the data that is in Deep Archive is durable all the time. You're not touching that copy. You're actually staging a copy in RRS storage class.
Got it. So
so
it's still there.
It's absolutely there, always available. So I'm going to go ahead and click restore. Obviously, this is a 12-hour process. So what I did in advance for our users is actually had a different object that I had restored. And here you can actually see this is actually showing a restoration expiry date, which is in the future. And at this point, I can just go ahead and download it. Right?
And it also says this object is in Deep Archive. You cannot edit any property.
Absolutely. So the data is durably secured. It is there, and you can now just use it as if it was a regular S3 object.
Super cool. So can backup and storage admins use Tape Gateway to directly upload their backups into Deep Archive?
Absolutely. We've been working with a number of partners and a number of other AWS services, and the one that I think I'd like to call out first is AWS Tape Gateway. And before today, with AWS Tape Gateway, it was a great way to let customers who are used to that tape infrastructure on premises to move their data into S3 into Glacier. And the way to think about it is Tape Gateway acts as a virtual tape drive. And when you put the virtual tape into the virtual tape drive, the data is in S3. It's in a warm millisecond access storage class. The moment you eject that tape from the drive, it's moved into Glacier. And you have the same experience that Abhinav just described. However, you have it through the Tape Gateway interface, and you can request that tape be pulled back and rewarmed for you. We're really excited to announce that Tape Gateway is supporting Glacier Deep Archive today, so that when customers load that virtual tape, they can elect which shelf to put it on, so to speak, and think of the Deep Archive shelves as just a little bit further behind the Glacier in the warehouse.
Are there any other features from S3 that you guys have integrated with?
Absolutely. Basically, we have integrated with all the features that customers have come to know and love about S3. So whether it's storage lifecycle, storage class analysis, cross-region replication, tagging, encryption, as well as both server-side and client-side, as well as the new features we had launched last year at reInvent, such as like object lock or intelligent tiering, where you can move lifecycle data that was in intelligent tiering now into Glacier and Deep Archive as well.
Is there anything else that I'm forgetting to ask?
I think the other thing that's really important is to think about our partners and the other software vendors out there. We think it's really important to meet the customers where they are and to not force them to go through any unnatural path to bring their data into S3 all the way through Glacier and Deep Archive. And we've been working really closely with the AWS Partner Network to make sure that they know what we're building here, and they're really well supported in making Deep Archive available through their software to our mutual customers.
That's awesome.
We're really pleased that a couple of them are going to have some early support today.
Any significant shout-outs?
Shout out to Commvault and to Veritas, who will have some functionality with Deep Archive available to customers today.
So where can our viewers go to learn more about Deep Archive beyond what we showed you today?
I think a great place to start is the S3 product page. You'll find a section under storage classes that describes Deep Archive.
What's the link for you?
Pricing is on the S3 page as well. And we've got a whole suite of social media updates, a blog post from Jeff Barr, and a press release on the Wire.
I've got a follow-up question for the tape gateway. Is that related in any way to me being able to put data directly into Glacier or Deep Archive via Snowball or Snowmobile?
Great question. It's slightly different. You can absolutely bring your data in through a Snowball or a Snowmobile. The way that works today is the Snow family ingests data into S3 Select, and once the data is in S3 Select, you have a couple of options on how to move it into Glacier or Deep Archive. You could copy it, or you could set a lifecycle policy, which is very easy to do, to say, as their data comes into this bucket, on the first day that it hits, just move it into whichever class you like.
For Twitch, those of you who don't know, our Snow class of families are some of my favorite products. They are just so cool. It's I think at the top tier, it's an 18-wheeler that we drive to your data center, we plug it in, we scoop up all the data, and we put it into optionally Glacier.
It's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that is really cool. Now, I think one thing I was wondering throughout this whole process is, you can tell us a little about some of the customer use cases that we have. What are the volumes of data that they're storing? Because when you talked about that price point, I wasn't thinking, wow, I can store 1 terabyte really cheaply. I was thinking, like, okay, well, at that price, I can store a lot of terabytes really cheaply.
Yeah.
That's a great question. We're thinking about exabyte scale, and look, it's a flat price, so everybody gets the same discount, whether you're storing a terabyte or whether you're storing 10 exabytes.
What's the trade secret there? How do you get the cost so low?
I can't tell you our secret sauce. I kid. What we do is we think about how to build storage solutions in a novel way using readily available hardware, and to build that system so that it's so efficient for us to use to manage the data flows
That we can offer
and pass
low
those
prices.
savings along to our customers. And the magic that you ask about, Nikki, is really our scale. That
Yep.
we have so many customers storing their data with us, and we can share the
Scale.
benefit of that scale with all of them.
It's awesome. You guys have any more questions before we let these guys go? Any more questions from
I
the
have
audience?
one more question.
Yeah?
Sorry. When we did that demo, that
Yeah.
was so cool. Can you talk a little bit more about what happens when you click restore? What's happening under the hood? I'm curious.
Absolutely. So with Glacier and Deep Archive, when you click restore, what really happens is a restore request is generated. If you're using an SDK, for example, it is an s3.post.restore request that is being generated that we actually then take and we process that request, and we schedule it in a way that's optimized for throughput. Right, so in this case, we were doing a single request, but imagine if you were trying to restore an entire tape library or an entire prefix of like millions of objects. Really, we are optimizing for throughput. We are making sure that you will get all that data in the required time frame, as well as we then stage that data in RRS, where it's available to you readily with millisecond access.
Mm-hmm. So given that restore is quite the asynchronous operation, because I think you mentioned somewhere on the order of several hours for that restore operation to make that data available again. Is there some sort of integration? Can I integrate with SES, or can I fire off invoke a Lambda when the restore operation is complete?
Absolutely. There are two types of integrations. One is the integration of how you actually go ahead and make these requests. So with S3 batch operations, we have actually integrated where customers can now actually request millions of objects and initiate restores on these. Secondly, once, as you said, it's an asynchronous process, so we actually have event notifications in S3 where for each of these events, whenever a restore is complete, you'll actually get an event notification which you can use to either trigger a Lambda function or get an SNS notification such as an email. We actually have some very interesting use cases for customers who actually store images in Glacier, and once they get this notification or the Lambda function, they actually do post-processing of this image and print it on a t-shirt and send it back to their customers. So some pretty cool, interesting things you can do with the Lambda functions.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys, for all the information about S3 Glacier Deep Archive. Make sure you check it out. We are signing off. Thank you, Abhinav, Rob, and Rob for joining me. We'll be back for more content soon. Bye, guys.
Thanks for having us.